There are insane number of YouTubers in the finance space teaching people all about building wealth, running businesses, investing, etc. But few years back, this channel started popping up on so many users' feed. Even though Iman has been creating videos for the past 8 years, he finally found his spotlight in the past few years. And it's primarily because of his well-scripted videos complemented by these professionally made animations. A video should have an A-roll section which Iman creates with his beautiful scenic studio environment, and a B-roll section which furthermore explains complex elements within the video. A fine combination of both is what made Iman Gadzhi one of the most brilliant content creators YouTube has ever witnessed. So today let's make an Iman Gadzhi animation inside of Davinci Resolve. And also, if you could master these skills, I'm pretty sure you'll be able to build a rock solid portfolio as a video editor. So let's fire up Davinci Resolve and get started with our video. The project settings I'm using is 1920 by 1080p with a 24 fps timeline. Now let's drag an adjustment layer from the effects panel and extend its length to 12 seconds. After that, let's go towards the Fusion tab. Inside of Fusion, the very first thing to do is to create a 3D scene. This is mainly because of the camera animation we are going to do inside of our video. And in order to create a 3D scene, we have to drag and drop a render 3D, merge 3D and a camera 3D node. Connect the camera 3D to the merge 3D node, then the merge 3D to the render 3D, and finally the render 3D to the media out node. And just like that, our 3D scene has been created. Now let's add our background. And in Iman's video, we can see this cool dark map as a background. In order to find a similar map, let's go to this website called Snazzy Maps. There are different styles of maps available here, so pick one. Well, I am going for this green one because we can anyway change its color inside of Fusion. So I imported the map image into our notes window. Quick note, these assets within the video will be available in the description, so go check that out. So after importing the screenshot, let's add an image plane 3D node and connect it like this. But even after doing that, we still can't see anything, right? So for that, just click on camera 3D node, go towards the transformation tab and decrease the Z value to 3. Now the next thing to do is to add a color corrected node right in between these nodes. This is to set our mood to a darker bluish tone. Now let's select our color corrector and gently move these handles towards the darker bluish side. For more accuracy, you can type 0, 1, -0.34 and 0.1 on the hue, saturation, tint and strength sections respectively. After changing the color tones of our image, let's go towards the contrast and increase it to 2.3. Then decrease the gain to 0.13 and slightly increase the lift to 0.02. The gamma value is going to be 0.7 and brightness will stay at 0.02. Now we need to add a vignette node to darken the edges and pull the main focus to the center of our screenshot. And for that, let's quickly add the vignette node. The settings can be left as default because it looks pretty good at this point. Now we need to add that roadmap text into our frame. So quickly add a text node, connect it to the screenshot stream with the help of a normal mouse node. The font I am using for the background is called Monument Extended. Now let's type in our text and decrease its opacity by going towards the shading tab, and under element 1 you can find the opacity slider right over here. Just give the value as 0.08. Now we need to add a rectangular node to kinda erase half of our text, which gives it a smooth gradient look. And for that, let's add a rectangular node and connect it to the blue triangle which acts as a mask. Now inside the node, increase the rectangular width all the way up to 1. Now slightly increase the soft edge value to 0.03. The final thing to do is to reposition it. And for that, I went towards the center Y value and took it all the way up to 0.75. Now we need to scale all our elements to 3 times its actual size. And for that, let's go towards our image plane 3D, and under transform you can find the scale properties. Just increase that to 3.5. We can also adjust the camera for a better view. So go towards the camera 3D and increase the Z value to 5.77. So finally we have our dark screenshot as well as our background text ready. In order to organize everything, I'm going to select all the layers associated with the background node and use the shortkey Ctrl+G to group it. Now we can double click the group node to view everything inside of it. And also we can change the name of the group to something like background. For that, click on the group and use the shortkey F2. Alright, quick pause. I create weekly editing tutorials like this on my channel, so if that's something you're interested in, do subscribe and hit that like button. I'm also going to add one more merge node. This is totally optional, I just want to keep things a bit more tidy on the timeline. So I'm adding a merge 3D node and placing it in between our old merge 3D node and the image plane 3D node. Next step would be to make this circular start point as well as this end point. And for that we need to add an image plane 3D node, a background node, a rectangular node as well as an ellipse node. Let's connect them accordingly like this and add one more merge 3D node and connect it to this one. So here the background gives the blue and green grading color to our start points. And the shape of this outer rectangle is being controlled by the rectangular node, which is being controlled as a mask to the background node. And this inner circle is controlled by the ellipse node, which acts as the mask to the rectangular node. Alright, so please skip few seconds ahead because you don't want to listen to this example. So the background node is like the kid who is being controlled by the rectangle, and this rectangle is like a dad in a family. But we all know that the dad is being controlled by the mom. Yes, the mother here is the ellipse node who is controlling the rectangular node, which is controlling the background node. Now let's tweak these settings to create an animation like this. First of all, let's change the color of our background to something bright so that we can see what's happening on our screen. And when we did that, we can see this clipping problem happening. So in order to fix that, let's increase the C value inside of image plane 3D to bring our background a bit more forward into the 3D space. Now let's disable our ellipse node and concentrate on our rectangle as well as our background. Then let's click on background and change it to a square shape. Right now it's having the same aspect ratio of our preview window, which is 1920 by 1080p. So what we have to do is to change this resolution to 1080p by 1080p. For that, make sure that you're selecting the background node, and inside of image tab you can go and uncheck the auto rotation. Now decrease the width to 1080p, and just like that we have a square background. The next thing to do is to change the color of our background. So instead of our color tab, just change the type to gradient. Then click on this tiny up arrow to select the first color for our gradient. And we are going to give it a light bluish color just like our reference video. You can also type this HTML code to get the same exact color. Then select OK and go towards the small up arrow on the right hand side of the gradient bar and select this yellowish color. And just like that we have a gradient like this. But we need to change the gradient location inside of our rectangle, and for that copy paste these values. Or you can play around with this line to have a similar gradient like this. After that, let's add those curved edges to the rectangle. And for that, click on the rectangle node and change the corner radius to 0.23. Then you will find a paint mode option right after the border width. Over there, just select invert so that the ellipse node will have an inverted paint effect, which is basically a mask inside of our rectangle. Now let's select the ellipse and change the width as well as the height to 0.493. So finally, our rectangular start point is also ready. But I missed one thing, which is to add our yellow circle in the middle of the rectangle. And for that, let's add a merge node right over here and then connect it to a freshly new background node. Then we will add an ellipse node as a mask. Change the background to a yellowish color, then click on the ellipse and change the width and height to 0.077. And finally, our start point is ready as well as our endpoint too. This is because we just have to copy paste all these nodes one more time to create the same rectangular thing which acts like the endpoint in our animation. But before copy pasting, we need to reposition our rectangle inside of our screenshot. And for that, let's click on Image Plane 3D and change the X value to -1.081. The Y value is -0.404 and the C value is 0.01. Also decrease the size all the way down to 0.2. What's left to do now is to animate our rectangle, and for that, let's select the rectangular node and go towards the very first frame of our timeline. Add a keyframe on angle, then move the playhead to the 10th frame and change the angle to -90. Now open the spline window, zoom to fit by clicking on this option and select these curves. In order for our animation to loop, we have to click on the set loop option over here. And just like that, we have our animated rotating rectangle. We can confidently copy all of these elements and paste it over here. Then we can change its position with the second image plane 3D. The X value is 0.933, Y is -0.545, and the C is 0.01. These values might change when we add these lines which acts as the road. So if there are any changes, I'll let you know later in the video. Now we need to group these nodes just like we did before. I'm gonna name this one as start and end point. The next element within our animation is the road itself. So for that, we need to add a curve which starts from this rectangle and ends at this one. And for creating such a road, we need a merge 3D node, an image plane 3D, a background node as well as a polygon node. Now connect all of them like this. One important thing to keep in mind is to increase the image plane 3D's scale value to 3.5. If we do that, we will have a background canvas which is similar to our actual map background. For better understanding, I'm going to disable the polygon node and change the color of our background to white. After that, let's fix the clipping issue. So consider this new background node as a tracing sheet. If we have a smaller tracing sheet, we can't really trace on all parts of the background, right? So here we are trying to keep both these backgrounds at the same scale with the help of this image plane 3D. Now let's start drawing our curved lines. For that, enable the polygon node and go towards the canvas and start drawing a smooth road like this. Then let's increase the border width to 0.0027. The position might be messed up at this point, but don't worry, you can always select these points and change it accordingly. Or you can use the image plane 3D to move the entire shape around the canvas. The next thing to do is to change our white color to a gradient one. For that, select the background and change the type to gradient. Add two more points here just by clicking on the color bar. The first color is the blue color. The second is this lighter bluish one. The third one is this bluish green. and the last one is the lighter green. Now we can move these handles closer to each other. And then let's add a glow node and leave all the values as it is to pop our gradient color. And after that, our gradient is done. But if we look at the animation, we can see these two lines going towards the end. The first one is a black and white one, and the second one is the one we just made. And also we don't have to draw anything from scratch, just copy the polygon which we made just now. Then add a new background node, change its type to gradient, connect it to the older polygon stream with the help of a merge node. And on our second line, our gradient color is gonna start with a gray color followed by a white and again a gray color. Now select the merge node and change the operator to under so that the gray line will go under our gradient line. Now for the animation, let's select the gradient polygon, go to frame number 0, add a keyframe on length and take the slider all the way down to 0. Then go towards the 240th frame and change the length to 1. If we disable this merge node and play our animation, it will look something like this. In order to smoothen our animation, open the spline window, uncheck every other curves except for our polygon curves. Then select these 2 points and hit S on your keyboard, and by clicking on these curve points, you can change the style of our animation to something like this. A quick easy tip would be to delete the curve linked to the black and white background. Alright, wait for it. Now copy paste the curve we just animated and connect it over here. Then enable our merge node to preview it. This way we can easily have the same animation in both our curves. But in our main video, the black and white line is further away from the gradient one. And in order to do the same thing, go to the spline window, uncheck the gradient line and select the black and white line. Now move the playhead to the very first frame, and inside of our spline window, take the playhead 10 frames back, which is at frame number -10, which can also be typed over here on this box. Then move the gray animation curves to this point over here. But the animation is a bit too fast, so I'm making small adjustment to the curves. So now if we play our animation, we can see that the gray line starts even before the gradient one. And both are racing to the finish line, which gives out a smooth roadmap animation like this. Now we can group this and rename it to road curves. So far we are making good progression. The next step would be to add our animated square points to the scene. And it's really easy. We just have to work on one point and then copy paste all these nodes over and over again to have this continuous point animation. In order to create this, we need to add a merge 3D node, an image plane 3D node, a background node as well as a rectangle node. Connect them all like this. Let's change the background color to white and fix the clipping issue. Also change the background's aspect ratio to 1080p by 1080p. Then click on the rectangular node and let's add an expression on both height and width. So for that, go towards the height text and right click over here. With the pop-up menu, you will have an option like this. Over here, click on expression. Now click and hold on this plus button and drag it towards the width to link the width value to the height so that we can control them both with a single slider. This is gonna save us a lot of time while we are animating the rectangle. And in order to animate this, let's go towards frame number 5 and add a keyframe on width. Take the width all the way down to 0 and also let's add a keyframe on angle. And then change the angle value to -90. Then go towards the 30th frame and change the width value to 0.19. Also change the angle value to 0. And if we preview this animation, we can see our rectangle rotating and slowly scaling up like this. But in our animation, there are few more extra movement happening. And for that, let's go towards the 40th frame, add a keyframe on width and angle, and let the values be the same. Then on frame number 60, change the width value to 0.1 and angle to 45. If we preview our animation, our square rotates and scales up. Then it scales down to this point, giving us a diamond shape. We can also smoothen our curves in our spline window, and after tweaking all these values, this is how the final animation curve will look like. Now let's add the point number on the top left hand side of the square. For that, add a merge node along with the text plus node and add it to the screen. Then type 01 as the text. The font I'm using is called Poppins and the font weight is set to light. You can also change its position to the top left hand side with the help of these controllers. I'm also going to change the opacity of our font inside of our merge node by taking the blend mode all the way down to 0.2. Now to animate the font, select the text node and right click on the font window. Then select follower. A new modifier tab will be enabled now. Click on it and on follower section, change the time delay to 5. Then go towards the text tab and add a keyframe on the 4th frame. Then set the size value to 0. After that, go towards the 13th frame and increase the size to 0.1. And this is our animation. Now we need to add a circular target point under our rectangle. And for that, add a merge node, connect it to the background and also add an ellipse node and connect it like this. Change the background color to white, then select the ellipse node and let's add an expression to the width and height just like we did with the rectangle. Now go towards the 5th frame on our timeline and add a keyframe on width and change the width value to 0. Go towards the 40th frame and take the width all the way up to 0.25. The width again decreases to 0.012 on frame number 83, and finally on frame number 122, it goes all the way back to 0.25. Let's open the spline window and smoothen our curves like this. And this is the final curves I've got, and this is the animation. Now let's select the last 3 points on the curves and loop it by clicking on this button. Then click on the merge node and set the operator mode to under. Also change the opacity to 0.06 by decreasing the blend value. And just like that, our first ellipse animation is ready. Now let's copy paste all these nodes and connect it one more time to the stream. Then open the spline window, uncheck the ellipse which we just animated, and only select the curves of the ellipse which we just copy pasted, and change its start point to frame number 10. So the first circular animation starts at frame number 5 and the second starts at frame number 10. We also have to change the width value to 0.17 on frame number 45 and frame number 127. And finally, our animation is ready. Now let's scale down our animation and place it on our roadmap line with the help of our image plane 3D. Let's go towards the 8th frame and see where the gradient line is happening. Now let's move this tiny animation start point to this line and scale down our animation to 0.5. And if we preview, we can see that right when this gradient line passes through this point, our rectangle starts its animation. One important thing that will save you a lot of time is to rename the rectangle, the text node and the 2 ellipse node to A1, A2, A3 and A4. This is important because it will be easier for us to uncheck them on the spline curve window. After that, move the playhead to few frames ahead to where the gradient reaches the next point as per our reference video. Now copy paste all these nodes associated with the rectangular animation and connect it to our merge 3D node. After that, rename these nodes to B1, B2, B3 and B4. Now enable our spline window and uncheck all the A nodes and make sure only the B nodes are activated. Now select all these points and move the starting point to the playhead location. Now change the position of all our B nodes under image plane 3D and our second point is also ready. Follow these same steps for all the 7 points and also don't forget to change the text node number to their point location respectively. After moving all these points and changing the position of these curves, our animation will look something like this. Pretty neat, right? And with that, our video is 90% done. All that is remaining is the camera animation and these infographics on the top left hand corner. So let's animate the camera first. On frame 0, add keyframes on translation XYZ, then change the X value to -1.085, Y value to -0.397 and Z value to 1.226. Then go towards frame number 87 and change the X value to 0.91, Y value to 0.567 and Z value to 3.736. At frame number 88, just click on these keyframe points. We don't have to change any values. Then on the 206th frame, change the X to 0.941, Y to -0.485 and C to 1.306. And the same numbers follow for our 207th frame as well. Then move to the final frame, which is our 287th one, and change the X value to 0.109, Y value to 0.08 and C value to 5.106. We can also go towards the background image plane 3D, which we did in the beginning of the video, and scale it up to 4. Also, it felt weird doing this tilt animation instead of our camera itself. So we can try doing this inside of our merge 3D node. And also keep in mind to select the parent merge 3D node to which all the nodes are connected. For that, go towards the 207th frame, add a keyframe on rotation X value of our parent merge node, then go towards the last frame and change this value to -21.7. Now let's smoothen these curves with the ease in and out options. And finally, our camera animation is also ready. Now our infographics. Firstly, let's add a vignette node right after the render 3D node. This is to pull our focus to the center of our animation. And then let's add a merge node, a background node and a rectangular node and connect it like this. The background will have a gradient like this, so copy paste these nodes for more accuracy. And also change the background aspect ratio to 1080 by 1080p to get that squarish shape. Also play with these gradient lines. The screen looks a little bit blurry because I've changed the timeline proxy resolution to quarter. Now let's change the merge node center X to 0.1 and center Y to 0.85. The size will be 0.38. After that, click on the rectangular node and go towards frame number 0. Then add a keyframe on soft edge, corner radius and angle. The soft edge value is 0.2, the corner radius value is 1 and the angle is at -295 degrees. Then go towards frame number 40, change the soft edge value to 0.078, corner radius to 0 and the angle to 45. After that, let's open the spline window and ease in these curves to 68. But now we need to animate our rectangle. And for that, let's add a transform node over here and go towards frame number 0. Then let's add a keyframe on center X and change the value to 0.059 and center Y will be 0.743. Also add a keyframe on scale and slightly increase it to 1.051. Now on frame number 40, center X and Y will be 0.5 and the size will go all the way to 0.41. After that, let's ease in the transform curves on the spline window. In order for our tutorial to play smoothly on the preview window, I have duplicated all our adjustment layers and deleted all other heavily animated nodes. Because Davinci Resolve is getting a little bit laggy because of the screen recording which is happening in the background. So don't worry about the nodes, they are all in a safe place. So back to the video. Our transform animation is ready, and after that let's drag and drop this location PNG icon to the canvas. Then let's add it to the stream with the merge node. This particular location point will have a continuous up and down motion like this. So in order to animate this, let's go to the very first frame and add a keyframe on center X and Y. So here on frame number 0, the center Y will be at 0.546. And on frame 40, the center Y value will go all the way down to 0.366. Then on frame 50, it will again go up to 0.546. In the spline window, let's change the curves into a shape like this. And then let's set it to loop. And if you preview our animation, we can see this continuous motion happening. I've also decreased the size of our location PNG to 0.88. The next step would be to add a Gaussian blur. On frame 0, let's add a keyframe and increase the strength to 0.8. And on frame 40, let's bring it all the way down to 0. Then add one more merge node and a text plus node to create our line animation. Add these nodes right after our transformation node as well as our Gaussian blur node. Now click on the text plus node. I'm using a font called Yen Simpson with the font weight to regular, and I've given it a gradient color similar to a rectangle instead of our shading tab, and I've also increased the tracking distance to 1.3 and size to 0.055. After that, click on the layout tab and change the C rotation to 90, then take the playhead to the 40th frame. Here we have to add a keyframe point on center X and Y. The center X value is gonna be 0.498 and the center Y value is gonna be 1.752. Then move the playhead to the very last frame, which is on frame number 287, and change the center Y value to minus 0.88. Leave the center X value as it is, then smoothen the curves in the spline window. After that, add a rectangular mask and connect it to the text plus node. Instead of a rectangle, the soft edge is gonna be 0.025, center Y is gonna be 0.138, width is 0.255 and height is 0.397. Now let's group all these layers and give it a title called Infographics. The animation looks so cool at this point. Now for our very final animation, add a merge node and connect it to a text plus node. Then type in this text. After that, scale down our text to 0.016. I am again using the Poppins font with the bold font weight. Now let's change its position on the layout tab. The center X value is gonna be 0.226 and the center Y is gonna be 0.851. After that, let's go towards the text tab and add a follower modifier just like we did before. Then click on the modifier tab and change the delay to 1. Next step would be to go towards the shading tab and on frame number 12, add keyframes on opacity as well as on softness X and Y. Change the opacity value to 0 and softness X and Y to 10. Then on frame 25, change the opacity back to 1 and also turn down the X and Y softness to 0. Now let's go towards the text tab on the follower modifier and right click over here and select the character level styling modifier. Then select our text by clicking and dragging over the text like this, and we only have to select these parts of the text. Now let's change the font weight to light. And after doing that, we have finally completed our Iman Gadzhi animation. To the people who have reached till this point, congratulations, you are the top 1% among the hustlers out there. I am wishing you all the best in your journey. Do subscribe if this tutorial was helpful. I'll see you guys in a brand new video. Bye bye and take care.